Slimsa here at Gossip Up Shows, Find Your Own Voice, lead from within. So with me today, I am with Amanda Murray and Grant Morrell. How are you guys?
Good.
All
Pretty
great percent.
bright and early in Canada.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Is it cold in Canada or warm?
It's actually warm right now.
Okay, we have it's a sunny day in the UK as well. So yeah, that's good. So the topic today is unplug, stand back, and observe. The key to regaining control. So in today's fast-paced world, constantly connectivity can lead to heightened stress and diminished sense of control over our lives. Taking deliberate breaks from digital devices, unplugging, it allows us to rest and regain perspective by standing back and observing our thoughts, surroundings. We can better understand our reaction and make conscious choices, leading to improved mentally well-being and renewed sense of control. So, Grant, you chose this topic. Could you please explain to our audience what was
Thank you.
motive
Thank you, Nomsa.
behind and the motivation behind it?
Thank you, Nomsa. Yeah, interesting. It started out for me with a conversation I had. Dinner. I went for dinner with some people in the advertising industry, marketing industry, government security, and myself. And we were talking. They were saying, "What have you been up to, Grant?" And I said, "Well, recently I took a little bit of time out, I mean, a couple of days here and there, a few days to Scotland, to literally unplug." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Rather than rushing around, I wanted to stay away." So you could say unplug, absolutely, as Nomsa said, to unplug the electronics. Many people do that for electronic detox, to just clear your mind. So rather than being invaded with what you should be thinking about, to allow your thoughts to come. Very, very liberating. So I went through this thing of unplugging. What I meant was mentally unplugging rather than electronically unplugging. But electronic unplugging is a great thing to do, and we'll look into that in a little bit. But to unplug from the world, to stop having information put in and allow you to process what you've already got and to understand what's important. So this is where I defined it in three ways, and we were looking at messages that are put out there. Let's just put it that way, advertising, etc. And I was raising the question about it and the politics behind it. And there's a lot of politics behind it, of which the moguls know it's kind of nonsense. They know, but they got to stay in the game. But it's given us false reality of the truth. And I wanted to take time to process this, as well as just processing life and business and where you are. So I wanted to, there's so much information out there. There's information overload. You all know it. You're probably scrolling on your phone while I'm speaking. And if you are, smile or send us a smiley face or a phone face just to let us know that you actually are, because I'm sure you are, because there's stuff going on. So there's no shortage of being invaded with information. The question is, which information do you choose to listen to? Choose being the operative word. There's information everywhere, and most of it isn't true, right? You may want to believe it's true because it confirms with your cognitive bias. If I say, for example, "Oh, Tuesdays are always raining on Tuesday," it's not true. But if I have this belief that Tuesdays are always rainy, and the next Tuesday it rains, I say, "There you go, told you, I'm right," because it confirms my cognitive bias. So our mind tricks us. We go out there and we filter information that confirms with our beliefs. Okay, confirms it. So we can say, "I was right." But in fact, we're cherry picking. We're cherry picking information. So we have to be kept. Now, good luck trying to correct that, because we're humans and we're programmed to do that to some extent. But be mindful of it. When we say, how many times do you say something to people and people say, "Oh, you're absolutely right"? What they really mean is, I agree with you. The truth is, we could both be wrong. But they agree, but they're saying you're right, as if they know. Well, they don't know. They know what they believe, and you confirm with their belief. So I sometimes take time out to stop and think about what we're doing, what we're saying, what we're believing. Is this true? Have I just picked it up and repeated it, or have I thought about it? Have I done my due diligence on it and thought, is this really true? Because most people in their lives are how many times are you walking down the road and you will bump into someone, or someone's on a collision course to bump into you because they're on the phone? They are not present with what's going on in the here and now. And some of my coaching training is about presence, keeping people present to yourself, to your team, your company, and the marketplace out there. What's going on? So that brings me to the next part, is standing back. You unplug, you take yourself away on holiday, or you electronically unplug, you do what you will. You lock yourself away in a park bench, in a cinema, or whatever. Stand back. What do I mean by that? Stand back when you talk at some of the best artists in the world. They will literally say, I'm too close to it, the situation, to see it. You know that? This is why sometimes if there's an emotional debate, you'll get an outsider to arbitrate, because they're not emotionally involved. They're not too close to the situation. And therefore they can see the truth. An artist will paint something and then will literally stand back from the canvas to get the overall perspective. This is what I mean by stand back. Stand back because when you stand back, you can get a panoramic view of what's going on in your life, your family, your career, your business, the world, your community, where you are now, where you want to go, what's missing in between. It's not about doing more. It's often about doing less, but doing the right things. So stand back and get those, oh my God, moments when it all comes to you and it's very, very clear what you need to do. So that stand back, unplug, stand back, and then observe. Observe the world. Buckminster Fuller, one of the greatest thought leaders perhaps of our time, often said words to the effect of, if you stand back and observe, watch the world in front of you, you will see the cogs of the universe turn. And I really believe that. See, I believe that. I think he's right because I believe it. Okay, so I'm victim to it the same as everyone. I believe when you slow down and watch the world, it's very obvious. This came to me as a private investigator. You talk to people blah, 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 words. And I'd be telling you stuff. I'd listen to the words, but then I'd get them to tell me again, and then I wouldn't listen to it. I just watched them. I see. It's written all over the face if you can read the facial language. So that's observation. You can observe people. You can observe trends. You can observe attractiveness. Yeah, you can observe fear, interest, focus. Yeah, disinterest. When people are stuck in their mind, you can observe it all, and you can observe this. Here's the thing: in yourself. I think you should schedule it in your diary a few times a year to quite literally unplug, stand back, and observe so that you can regain control over your own life. That's what I felt. Amanda, how does this play out in your life? How does it play out in the schools? What do you think?
Well, in the province that I live in, actually in Canada, they made a law for the kids not to have cell phones in the schools, and it's different for like different ages. And so, for example, in elementary school, which is what I teach, they're not allowed to have their phones like at all during the day. Like they go in their backpacks and they don't come back out until after school's over and they're at home. Um, and then in middle school where my daughter is, they're only allowed to have them at lunchtime if they leave the school grounds, essentially. And then in high school, I'm not really sure what the rules are because I don't teach high school. But I know that those rules have like, they're not allowed to have smartwatches either in the classroom because they can like be playing on the smartwatches. And so in some ways it's really good because it's made kids a lot more conscious. And even before, we didn't have as many like problems with it at our school, but I think there was other schools that definitely did have issues with kids being on their devices constantly. But my school didn't really, nothing's really changed with that law coming into place in the fall of this year. And so, but I do think that it's really important. There's a book that I would read to my class when I was teaching grade 3, and I've read it a couple times when I've taught grade 5, and it's called If You Give a Mouse an iPhone. And it's like the similar to the books, like if you give a mouse a cookie and then what happens. So with the book, If You Give a Mouse an iPhone, the guy's like trying to finish something up and the mouse is like, hey, like do this with me, do this with me, do this with me. And the kid is like, here, just play with my iPhone for a minute so I can finish. And then the mouse is like, like the whole time he's like, hey, I'm taking you to the amusement park. And the mouse is like, and then like just keeps staying on the phone, staying on the phone. And the mouse like falls off a cliff and misses all these things and like ends up in a boat and ends up on this deserted island. And then the cell phone dies and he like loses his mind because the cell phone dies. He's like, charger, I need a charger. And he's like freaking out. And then he realizes that they're on this deserted island with a campfire. And he's like, hey, how do we get here? This is really cool. And then they like marshmallows, and that's the end of the book. And it's like, so I read it because it's funny, but it's also like a point for kids to be like,
Right.
hey, how much do you miss because you're like glued to your phone? And there's so many times where I'll tell my daughter to do something, and she's, well, 14 now, and she completely misses my instructions or whatever. She's like, you didn't tell me to do that. I'll be like, no, I did like 4 times, but you were on your phone. And so you say yeah, or 1 sec or something, but you're completely not processing what I've asked you to do. And so that I have times where she has to put it away. So all of the devices get locked in my room at like 9:30 at night on school nights. And then you're not allowed to have them until you're ready to leave in the morning. And so essentially like that time is something that I think more parents need to do. And there's also like time limits on her phone too to unplug. But I do really like the idea of going somewhere and completely unplugging for a weekend and just like reading and journaling. And I would love to be able to go somewhere and like still have my computer, but be able to just write and not be on the internet, because I like love to write, right? So there's that piece where I'm like, oh, I would love to be able to, like, where they say like, could you survive on a deserted island for 6 months with no cell phone? I'm like, well, yeah, but can I write on my computer? I'm like, I don't even need the internet. Or like, could I use Canva to create with? Like, could I use my iPad to draw with? Because then I would absolutely, like, you could lock me up there for years. Because I love to write and I love to draw and I love to create. But lots of my creativity is on my devices. And so that's where I struggle with that piece of like completely unplugging, because my unplugging sometimes is, I'm going to just sit with my computer and I'm going to write a blog entry. And I'm just going to get all of my ideas out onto paper or onto the computer. And then instead of writing it on paper first and then putting it on the computer. And so with that unplugging piece, for me, sometimes it's not necessarily getting rid of the devices, but it's being really conscious of what you are doing on your device. And so it's like being a conscious creator on devices instead of being a passive consumer. And so I think that's where sometimes our education comes in, because it's not necessarily how much time you're spending on a device that's the problem. The problem is what you're doing on it.
I agree. I agree.
Uh, So how do you deal with that with your coaching, Grant or Nomza? Like, how is people's procrastination? And I know lately one of my procrastination problems with for myself has been, one, I have two big ideas and I don't know which one to do. And then two is because I don't know which to do, I'm stuck. And then I just like scroll on Instagram, send my friends funny memes. And when I really could be using that time to be productive. And I'm not, I'm like just stuck because I'm like, well, I don't know which of these two ideas to do. So I'm just gonna not do anything and zone out. And I've like zoned out from like January until now, essentially. But I think that, and then I had a friend reach out to me and say, like, hey, you used to do all of these posts on TikTok, on Instagram, and I really enjoyed the content that you created, but you're not doing it anymore. What happened?
I am one of them who's grieving, Amanda. I am.
I know I need to get back on track. I'm getting back on track. I just have had a lot on my plate. So those are the things that, like, what are you doing to be a conscious creator? And I know for myself, I've fallen off the wagon for about 2 months for sure. And so when I think about unplugging and observing, regaining control, it's like really making a conscious effort to decide what you're going to use your devices for and then do them. And then also make sure that you're not just using them to zone out and mindlessly scroll like I've been doing.
Yeah, it's no. So, what's your take on that? What's your take on what? Really,
Well, what Amanda just said, I'm grieving, Amanda. I don't receive any newsletters anymore. So I check my emails every day. Nothing has been coming up since January. So I'm wondering what's going on.
I took a 2.5 month like unplug time.
But I
So
think at the
I need
same
to get back
time,
on.
I agree with you. Sometimes we believe that life is all about creating, creating, creating. But I think sometimes you have to step back and unplug, like Grant said, and really, because that's where you get more creativity when you unplug and just give yourself time to not to like to make yourself wrong. Like you should have taken that time in January, although you are sending messages to your friends, but it should be joy to you because that's where your creativity comes when you don't really think about anything, when you just say, okay, I've had enough, it's me time now. I'm gonna send them a message. I'm gonna send this one a message and just be in that zone where you just unplug everything. And I also agree with mobile phone. My daughter, she's 9. The other day, she was telling me she needs a mobile phone. I was like, what do you want a mobile phone for? I drop you to school. At school, you don't allow you to use your mobile phone and you take them, you put them in your bag, in a locker, and then you use it when you come out. Why do you need it? Is that my friend has got it? I was like, okay then. But you can't have a mobile phone anywhere. So I said no. Because she's already have tablets for homework because I have to do homework through the technology gadgets. So I was like, you have already got 2 tablets for your homework, so you can't have a mobile phone. But I also, because my daughter had her phone, a first phone when she was going to high school, simply because where she has to go, she has to travel by bus. She has to take a school bus. So if she misses a school bus, then she has to call us someone that has to go and pick her up, or she has to take a train, public transport. She needs to be able to call someone if she has got problems. I think it's 45 minutes from where we are to the school by bus. And by car is 15 minutes. It's less than that. Oh, her bus it doesn't stop. It stops. Yeah, it stops because it's a school bus. It stops and stops, school stops. Yeah, it's 45 minutes. So I agree with you, Grant. Sometimes we have to unplug, and Amanda, we have to unplug. But for me, what I do, like when I'm feeling the way you're feeling, Amanda, I unplug. I don't do nothing. I don't blame myself. I don't watch TV. I just sit on the sofa and be a statue. I text no one. And then the ideas they come. I just go on a strike where I don't do nothing. And my mom was saying her mobile phone is not working the other day, and I was like, she's stressed, and I was like, I wouldn't get stressed if my mobile phone wasn't working. I would be very happy because it means no problems.
And I think you're right. I mean, I had a phone when I was in Vegas a couple of years ago. It stopped literally as I called the Uber from the airport to get to the hotel. The phone cut out, and for the whole conference, I thought, well, I look back, where's the photos from the? Well, the phone wasn't working, right? And that was the camera I was using. It wasn't working until after the conference. I got it fixed. Okay, and partly terrifying, partly really liberating. Really liberating. I mean, I literally went to my hotel room to check on like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. So I pop up every few hours and see messages. It was really like going back in time. It was kind of interesting in a sense, as if he was going back and checking voicemails from a landline, that kind of thing. And it was interesting. But of course, you can go and jump onto an app on a phone or, Tomb Raider or whatever, Call of Duty, Candy Crush, whatever. You can go and do it, but that's plugging back in. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think in fact, we had this conversation. Um, we were talking about this. In fact, a friend of mine knows the founder of Candy Crush pretty well. But we were saying about, some said, oh, bloody Candy Crush, terrible thing. And the other person said, a really good point, well, no, I don't think so. He said because, for example, his mother-in-law works in the health industry and sometimes has to give people some pretty rough news. And after they do it, will see people retreat and go on to, you know, Candy Crush or something. Now that may seem like you don't care or you're not paying attention, but not really. It's an escape. It's buying them time to think, to process. It's somewhere to go. And I said, I really get that. Psychologically, people do need to. I've got a friend who's a lawyer, a very good lawyer, and they come home and they will watch slutty, stupid movies, completely fictitious. But I mean, they really are. And I said once, quite honestly, do you ever watch real films? Because I must have not seen them as real films. I said, not really, no. This is a lawyer because they're using a lot of cerebral parts of their brain all day long. When they come home, they just want to chill out and not be challenged. And I totally understand that. I totally understand it. So I'm not saying that these games don't challenge your mind. Perhaps they do. Reflexes, thinking, process, but it's a relaxation. Okay. I know ex special forces people who go and play those games to relax before they go to bed, right? Okay, so it's what you do. It's what you do to it. But I'm also talking about something slightly different here, which is unplugging, not putting anything else in your brain, just observing what's around, using your natural senses. Because I think it's very therapeutic because essentially it's what we were designed to do. Okay, it's nature, it's how we were designed. We were designed to sit back and reflect. Now I'm looking out the window now. As Nobs said at the beginning, it's a sunny day here we're in London, different parts of London, but we're in London. And it is a beautiful day. When we finish this call, I've got phone calls to make and a heavy meeting tonight. But I may make a cup of coffee and just sit outside there and just look at the sun glinting off the leaves and seeing the beauty. And it's fairly quiet out there. And I'm just going to enjoy the quiet and just make sense of this life and just think, who am I? Where am I? What the hell am I doing? You know, where am I in this stage of life? How much longer have I got left? Well, I mean, nobody knows, but there's indications just by age alone, right? What have I achieved? What have I not achieved that I need to do? And I came up with this theory that most of the things we do in our life are a complete and utter waste of time. I often watch people when I'm observing them, and I thought, what are you doing? Oh, this has got to be done. I said, sorry, but who said that's got to be done? It's some law that they've imposed upon us. And women, you ladies are great at doing this, right? You're great. That impose it's got to be done. Is it? You may choose to do it, but it hasn't got, and is that thing going to make the difference? Now, in coaching, I want to do this. I know you get this procrastination thing all the time, right? Oh, I want to do this. I've got to do that. I'll check that. And I'm going to write this. Okay. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Oh, because like I want to have that. I said you want it to look pretty, but is that actually going to help? She used the analogy of a web designer I spoke to years ago. He showed two websites. What's the best one? And people say, "Oh, this one. It looks great." It depends what you want it to do. He wants his website to make money. He said that other crummy looking one performs really well. So what do you want it to do? Is it something that's got to aesthetically look good? Or has it got to perform well? Ideally, you probably want it to do both, but it's not necessarily. Yeah, so my point is, half the things we do, are they the difference that really makes the difference? If we understand, if you stripped it back to the bare basics and said, today I've lost my home and I've lost all my money, cars and phone, what do I need to do? Well, you need to find shelter and you need to eat. That's what you need to do. We need to find somewhere for you to stay tonight and we need to put a dinner in front of you. That's what we need to do. When you strip it down to the bare basics, that's what you need to survive. Okay. And then the skills go on top of it. I've often said if Richard Branson lost everything and needed so much, let him stay on your sofa for 6 weeks because he wouldn't be broke for very long. Give him a phone and a sofa and a meal, he'll be rich. And he'll take you with him. Right? Because this is what you've got to do because they know these skills, but they know what needs to be done in a tight situation. When I was at university, I studied business takeover, really, which was like strategic marketing. And you'd look at a failing company, failing fast, you would go in to quickly rescue it and turn it around and bring it back up. And some things had to be cut out, of course. Some things that look nice are nice, but you've got to cut out those things to work on the essentials. The work of Zelnick, I think it was about big work, essential work. Okay, real work. Sorry, real work, which meant that all the fluffy things are great, but you've got to do real work. If you're in a supermarket, you've got to sell 10 tins of food, right, or something like that. That's at the end of the day, the cash register's got to ring, and that's the point. What have you got to do? So, what do you want to do in your life? What must you achieve by maybe this age? How must you be feeling? How must you be living life? So I'm looking at this way of how to live life. How can we live life and creating a movement for living gracefully, enjoying this life? Okay. So my question to you is, I'm not saying you should follow my way, but what is your way that you need to live? Don't rush around from day to day, bumping into walls, not having time to observe, because years and months just go, decades go like that. What are you choosing to do with this wonderful gift called life? And if you stand back after you've unplugged, if you stand back and then observe yourself, observe the world that you live in and see how you fit into it, you often find it quite liberating and quite a simplifying method of how you can live to achieve the things you want to achieve rather than the things that society and media tells you you should have. Now, if you really want those things, great, that's fine. If that's your conscious decision, but don't let it be an unconscious command, is my point. So what do you want to do? Amanda, kids, they're consciously being driven by things they're seeing. And you must see this come up all the time. I mean, your life doesn't just consist with kids. You've got a teenage daughter. You work with adults. You are an adult. You know adults, but then you interact a lot with kids. Do you see any difference between the two?
For being able to unplug, the one thing that I see with kids for sure is that when you take the devices away, that's when they're the most creative. And so
What's
I
that?
also
When you take what away?
devices away, that's where they're the most creative.
Really?
When I look at like my own child
Really?
in our house, it's when she's bored and that's when we're the most creative and we have time to just like create whatever it is. And so one of the things that she created over Christmas time was essentially she took cardboard and she cut it up and she made like a starfish, and then she also made a seashell and then a like whale out of like cardboard and paper, and then she paper mache'd it, and then she like put them on her wall, and well, and she painted them too. But essentially it was something that she saw on like TikTok or Snapchat or something, and then she essentially like created it afterwards. But it's also like having that time to just like unplug and not have anything else going on and just sit with your creativity. And I think sometimes our kids are so overscheduled that they don't have time
Yeah.
to be creative, and or if they do have that time, they're just watching TV or being on a device or something. And so that's why I think it's really important to even monitor for yourself, how often are you just zoning out on your phone? And then if you're doing that, or zoning out in front of the TV, and if you're doing that, can you turn it off and then model something different? Can you turn it off and read? Can you turn it off and journal? Can you turn it off and draw? Can you, so like, what is it that you're doing to also model that creativity for children? But children are like innately creative, and adults always tend to like second guess themselves, but kids don't. Like when I teach painting or something to children, they're like in the paint before I even start like saying like, okay, get the paints out. Whereas adults, they like him and haw and stress over like making sure they pick the right color. And I'm like, just start. It doesn't matter. It's art. It's allowed to be creative. It doesn't have to be perfect. Adults are so much more focused on making it perfect and not wanting to screw up, and are harder on themselves than young children. And I think even by grade 5 though, I see that creativity and that ability to just like jump in feet first on whatever it is that we're creating. It already starts to be like, oh, I can't do that, or oh, when I was in grade 3 this happened, and so I just won't do that anymore. And it's like, no, we almost like Ken Robinson used to talk about how education essentially like educates kids out of creativity, and we don't want to do that. And so his question in his TED Talk, that's one of the most watched TED Talks in all of TED Talk history, was
What?
do schools kill creativity, is the most watched TED Talk ever. And it was from Sir Ken Robinson, and that's what he talked about, was essentially that we're educating kids out of their innate creativity. And I definitely think that that's something that we need to be cautious of. And I saw Ken Robinson speak in my very first year as a teacher in like 2006 or 2007. And he's since passed on, but I haven't seen a lot of shifts in education where we're focusing more on those passions that children have. And I think that's really how we need to shift education in order to make it better, because we're still stuck in this like 300-year-old system that's really, really difficult to change.
Yeah.
And so when I think about like unplugging and stand backing and observing, I think about like a meditation. And can we meditate on even just for 5 minutes? You don't have to go away for a weekend or disappear for a month in the woods. You really have time each and every day where you can unplug, stand back, and observe by just sitting in silence in meditation for a few minutes. Connect to your breath,
Yeah.
notice your body, notice what's going on inside your body, notice where you're stiff, notice where you're tense, notice where you're like holding your body weird. Just having those few moments, notice what's going on in your head while you're trying to just sit in silence, what keeps popping up for you. Those are those like moments of unplugging that sometimes we really just need, is just to be really present. And then ask yourself, like Grant said, what is it that I need to do today? How can I show up as the best version of myself today or in this moment? Right? And when we can unplug, we can consciously ask ourselves those questions. But when we're rushing from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and then we're so exhausted that we just lay on the couch and we zone out on our phones or on the TV, and we're not asking ourselves those questions. We're not digging deeper within ourselves. And I think that's something that everyone would benefit from.
That's really well said. I love that. I love that. Thanks, Amanda. Nomsa, that's a great.
No, you're Grant.
I mean,
You're block muted.
Yeah, I think I like that, Amanda. I think I was talking to someone the other day. I was saying we're talking about Africa, and I was saying I like the old Africa, not this Africa, because people are trying now to copy Europe, how Europe live, and which is killing the creativity in Africa. Because for me, growing up as a child, every food that I ate, I had to learn how to grow it from the beginning, everything. I don't remember even tomatoes, onions, coffee, tea. I don't drink tea or coffee, but I used to see them growing all these things. But now it's all about buying. No one bothers to create things. And they're trying to live like European. And I was like, I like the old Africa, not this one. That when I go home, everyone is trying to copy Europe. So I think the schools as well, it's really, you can tell, like my daughter, my oldest one, when she grew up, there was no gadgets in the house. Even the TV, I think she started watching TV when she was like 13 or 14. She would listen to music. She watched TV, but listening to music on TV. But you can see the difference between my youngest one and even her. She'll be like, what's going on with my mom? I never used to allow to do this. I never used to allow to do this. So I prefer creativity than gadgets, to be honest with you. And I think that is really, really, really important for us to teach our children to be creative, even us parents as well, to be really, really creative with things, because that's where, when I met my friend the other day, and then she was like, Nomsa, you didn't tell me that you are a dancer. I was like, because I'm not. And she was like, what? I was like, while you guys are busy watching TV, me, I'm busy listening to music. I connected to the music in a way that I become an instrument to the music. So when the music beat goes, I can, with God, I can do any style of dance, but I'm not a dancer. So I was explaining to her that you've got to be creative. I go on social media, I manage my own social media myself, but I have this attitude where I go on social media and do what I've got to do, and then I come out. I don't stay there very often. And there's lots of gadgets in the house. For me, my most gadgets is my earphones. If I can lose my phone, it's fine. I'm not bothered about it. I'll be bothered with customers trying to get a hold of me, but there's office phone. I can answer the phone. So that's fine. But I think it's really, really important. Like Grant, you said something really important. You said to reflect, enjoy the quiet, make sense of life. Some people don't do that. They don't make sense of their lives. When you actually, you can admire people, you can go on social media, admire people, but don't try to be them. Do your own thing. Make sense of who you are, where you want to be. Like Amanda right now, Amanda, I think right now, don't make it wrong what you're doing. You're just making sense of what step can I take moving forward. So, which is fine, is allowed. We don't have to be constantly creating. Sometimes we have to take a break, rewind, reflect, unplug, analyze things. Like for me now, what I'm doing is now I am asking myself, like, this is what I've been doing for a long time, and I'm saying to God, right now I need your help, but I'm doing it behind the scenes. Like, I was talking to other pastors, and like you were saying, there was this musician. This guy, he was so talented, but when he plays, people, they were like, we don't connect with your music and stuff. And then in the end, he was like, no one appreciates my music. He left. And his sister said to him, he said to his sister, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing, the music. But his sister said, because it's your calling. So it was like, what do you mean? He was like, because when you go play, you want to be like everybody else. You want to be professional. You have this thing that you've created in your head that it should look like, but it's your calling. So if something is your calling, what do you need to do? So he was like, I need to pray. So he spent time fasting and asking God, what do I need to do? And then he was like, I'm asking God, but he's not responding. And one of the pastors said, when his sister, I went back to his sister, he was like, God is not responding. What am I supposed to be doing now? And then his sister said, ask God, I don't know what question I need to ask.
Right.
I don't know what I need to ask. God then responded and said, help. Ask me to help you. So his reply was, ask for help. Meaning when he goes on that piano, when he touches the keyboard, he needs to say, God, help me. So then he went on stage. When he went on stage, because he was trying so hard, watching other big players, and he was trying so hard to copy them, and he went on stage and said, God, help me. And God said, and he played. When he played, everybody came to him and said, what was happening today?
Wow.
He got big deals because he just asked for help. And I was saying to my friend, that's what I do when I go and dance. I say, God, make my step look so different because I can't do it on my own. And he shows up and I just do what I got to do. Or even when I'm working, when I'm lost, I do that as well. But then my friend was sending me a message saying, Nomsa, I don't have strength like you have. I said to her, that's where the problem is. You are trying to be me, but you can't be me because I'm not using my own strength. I asked for help. So I said to her, try to be you. Ask for help. What help? Where do you need help? And ask for it. So that's where people make mistakes, that they're trying to be everybody else. Like a grant, you say, take a breath. Amanda, you've taken break for 2 months. Who cares? Your body actually is happy because you're not like you're taking a break. But I think what you need to do now is enjoy that break because you thinking that you're not doing anything is blocking your creativity. Being hard on yourself. Just go easy on Amanda. That's all you got to do.
Helping me like really get focused on figuring out what it is that I need to do next. And I think that sometimes we do need to just unplug and not be so hyper focused. And I think we need those times of rest. And I know that there's goals that I have that I haven't completed, and sometimes I need to just kick my own butt and get back on track. But sometimes I do really need to rest. And I think, like, Grant, from a coaching perspective, like, how do you teach your clients to like know when it's time to kick your own butt and get back on track versus like we actually need to unplug for a little bit and just allow yourself time?
It's a great question, and it's to increase focus, you must unplug because you must restore that balance. You must do that. So we factor it in when I do the goal setting, various stages throughout their career, and I'll always do it from where they are and break it down. But when I do this for them, we understand what they're doing for leisure because it's important. It's so important. I've got a client who has a meltdown. They do literally melt down if they push themselves too hard. And I can see it. They can't see it themselves, but I can see it. So I factor in for them leisure time. It's so important. They earn less money, they think, in the short term. Yeah, a little less, not massively, a little less. But it's sustainable growth because they're mentally well, okay? They're spiritually well. When they do it this way, it's slightly slower and they sustain and they grow. growing any business, exponential growth sounds very attractive, can often be very destructive because, you know, I say to people, if you had all the clients you wanted in the world and you threw them on your lap now, you probably aren't set up to handle it mentally or logistically. You know, it's something you often have to grow into. And the more your business grows up, there's bigger decisions to make. And you may not be at that decision at that point just yet to make them. It's a different ball game. You know, what takes people from, you know, 0 to 500,000 is a different strategy from 500,000 to 1 million, from 1 million to 3 million, and 3 million to 10 million is different. They're different strategies, different levels of thinking to take on board. It's just like if you ever have a job in a company, then you get promoted, you go, oh, this is different. This is a different job, different perspectives. And when you're down there, you have no idea what it's like there, right? But you grow into it. You wouldn't want to go from there to there straight away. You wouldn't be able to cope most of the time. Most of the people, most of the time, wouldn't be able to cope. Now, you might be listening thinking, I could. Maybe you're right. Maybe you are one of those who could. Most people can't. You can grow into it, or the best level of success is to grow gradually by standing back, reflecting, growing. Because if you go from there to there, you might find you hate that. That might not be what you want. That could be your worst nightmare, not your utopia. But as you grow up gradually, you might go there and think, this is it, actually. This is really where I want to be. This is my sweet spot. Wonderful. Eureka. You found it. You found happiness. You found success. That is it. If you went to there, you may find a whole lot of unhappiness. Okay. But you don't. But if you're there and you want to go for it, yeah, let me show you how to get there and there and there. But you analyze it each time, and it's not continuous growth, it is reflection that is so important. I've been coached by one of the world's best CEOs, and I told him my methodology, and he said, I think you're really on the right track with this. Yeah, this is the way to look at it. It's you've got to design a life around you. It's not all material possessions. Yeah, some of them are nice, some are useful, some are helping other people, and that's absolutely true. I validate all of that, but you've got to find something that fits you. So when I coach people on a group, I give the kind of the fundamentals of which really works well for. In fact, it's more than fundamentals; it goes quite deep, but it works well for most people. When it's individual, I do what works well for them. Yeah. So I say, if you was this kind of person, I'd recommend this kind of, but knowing you as I do, this is what I'd recommend for you. Yeah. And we can coach them around that methodology. You know, there's many ways to become successful. If you look at it, Warren Buffett done it in a completely different way to Richard Branson, to Oprah Winfrey, and so on to Steve Jobs. They're completely different characters, and they go about life differently. There's not one that's better than the other, but they are all appropriate for that person. If that person tried to adopt the other person's style, they wouldn't get much success because it's just going against the grain of them. In the Eastern world, they talk about going with flow, with chi, with energy. Go with the grain, go with the flow of water, you know, your flow. You've got to find your flow and find what's right with you. And you need solitude for that to understand. This is why monks often have a slow day once a year. They take a day where they do everything very, very slowly. So that when they come out of the house and they turn right, either come out of your house and turn right, and you walk slowly, so you see the cracks in the paving stones. You see the sun on those cracks. You see the little leaves growing out, and you see beauty all around you that you're often too busy to notice. Sometimes when you see these things, you get the real revelations and understanding of what's right for you in life. And that's why it's important to unplug, stand back, and observe before moving forward. Wow, try and get that into the kids' head, eh, Amanda?
Amanda, it's 4 minutes past 2.
I need to get going because I have to get to work. Thank you so much for today. It was really thought-provoking, definitely. And my advice to anybody would just be to like really think about what you're doing on your phone or on any device and try to be a conscious creator rather than a passive consumer.
I love that. Thanks, Amanda. Any words of encouragement, Gallant?
Just given them, just done it.
Okay.
That was
For
it.
me, guys,
Don't do any more than that. That's it.
yeah, for me, guys, it just, I'm gonna make sense of like life, like what Rand said. You just go into this quiet place and just, because at the end of the day, it's your own pace, not anybody else. So just try to make sense of where you're going. When you watch videos or because like Randy says, there's so much information. I was thinking yesterday, everyone wants to make meetings with me because I create videos every day. Everyone wants to have a meeting and send me something, coach me. I was like, I've already got a coach. So yesterday I made a decision that I'm no longer going to meet people because they say, let's collaborate. But when I meet them, they're like, they want to coach me. I'm like, I don't need no coaching. They want to sell me something. So I'm like, I want to collaborate with you. I thought the meeting was for collaboration, but so things just stay focused. And guys, if you're watching us on YouTube or you're watching us on LinkedIn or any part of social media, we have two groups on Facebook, Ngozi Talk Show Group and Unique Billionaire Mindset. Please do join and be part of the family. And YouTube, please do subscribe and share the videos. And if you are looking for love to find your own voice and lead from within, go to the website. It's www.hseia.coach. Sign up and see you on the other side, guys. God bless and leave with